Good morning, folks. This is Zach Hubeck with Wave. We're going to get our session started in just a few moments here. If you are here for the Cambium networks, Wave and MBSI Wave maximize ROI with ePMP and point to multi-point products, you are absolutely in the right place. We'll get started in just a few moments. Thanks for your time, folks. Boys, I'm excited. We got a good group coming in here. It's looking great. Hey, good morning, folks. Zach Hubeck with Wave and MBSI Wave. We'll get started in just a couple of moments here. All right. Good morning, Sam. Folks, I'm going to go ahead and get us all kicked off here. So first and foremost, thank you to everybody for taking the time this morning. My name is Zach Hubeck. I'm with Wave and MBSI Wave, and we're honored to have Cambium presenting to us today about maximizing ROI with their ePMP and point-to-multipoint products. You know, Wave in the US and Canada for MBSI Wave. We've been partners of Cambium's for many years, predating 2001. And what we love about Cambium is their continual investment in the service provider market. And this webinar is pays homage to that. I've got a couple of great panelists with me today, Bruce Collins and Matt Mangriotis. And I'm going to turn it over to the boys in just a couple of minutes. But first, I wanted to walk through, I don't want to assume everybody knows who Wave and MBSI Wave is. And really, folks, when you partner with either Wave in the US or MBSI Wave in Canada, really our value and our contribution to you folks is that you're really partnering with twice the distributors. Because if we're talking about inventory positions, we Wave US may not have that in stock versus it being available in Canada. We have twice the engineering capabilities and supply chain capabilities, and really love serving this service provider market. And the last thing I wanted to show you guys is our warehouse and distribution centers. We pride ourselves on having one of the largest and most consistent stocking positions in the market. And if you are local to these provinces or states, our warehouse and distribution centers are ready to take care of you guys. So thank you guys so much for coming today. I'm going to take care of a couple of housekeeping things here. So folks, for our presenters, you are all in listen-only mode at the moment. If you do have a question that's relevant to a slide or something that Bruce or Matt, you'd love for them to stop and reiterate or take the conversation to another level, please do pop that into the chat. And we're going to be monitoring that, and I will lob those questions over to the fellas. And we do encourage interaction today. So please don't be bashful. Send over some chat information to us, and I look forward to this presentation. So without further ado here, I'll turn it over to my man M Squared. Matt, good morning, sir. How are you today?
I am well, Zach. Thanks for having us. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, and it should flip right over, hopefully.
We got you.
Awesome. And I will begin. So I'm going to start talking. My name is Matt Mangriotis, as Zach mentioned, from Cambium Networks. A lot of the folks on the attendee list, I recognize the names, so welcome back. Nice to talk to you again. We're going to talk today about kind of what's coming in PMP, and we're going to cover both 450 and ePMP, our two main point-to-multipoint product lines that are focused on the WISP market. So without further ado, we like to talk about the Cambium One network, of course, because that's really the power of using Cambium. We have all kinds of wireless solutions, including now cable and PON solutions. So really, it's all about having that access to the single pane of glass that you can monitor, manage, do everything you need to do with your network, troubleshoot from beginning to end. It's all under the same umbrella. It's all using the same tools. And we're going to focus today on the point-to-multipoint stuff. But bear in mind that with Cambium, you get that one network feel for any of the system that you use. So really, when it comes down to a point-to-multipoint network, or any network really, what are the kind of network needs of what you're using? What do you need to do? You need to provide more bandwidth. We're able to give you higher bandwidth packages to be able to better compete with what's out there. You want to reduce churn. You want to keep customers happy. How do you do that? There's a lot of ways to do that. One of the ways is with quality of experience. We have a QoE tool that can do that. We're now providing more and better bandwidth, more consistent latency, things like that as we improve software and optimize things for the future. You want to reduce the rate of install failure. Planning tools can help with that. We have a lot of planning tools that can help make sure that you don't get out to a customer, try to hook them up and then fail. That's a waste of everybody's time and money. How do you avoid that? Better planning. We have the ability to reach more potential customers with these next generation of products. And that includes 6 gigahertz. 6 gigahertz is a huge part of the future of the unlicensed band for sure, and point-to-multipoint in general. We think there's a huge amount of opportunity with 6 gigahertz coming, and it's imminent. We can kind of give some updates on that as well. And really, one of the goals that we have as a company is to leverage what you already have in your network. We know a lot of folks have, gone down the road, with investment in these platforms. And so how do you leverage those platforms? We continue to make new software available to make your investments work more for you. So do more with what you already have. Take advantage of what you already have. Add more customers, reduce churn, increase bandwidth. So how do we do that? We call that the 30-30-30 program. We embarked on this a couple of months ago, and we've made a lot of progress, and we're going to continue to make progress in this. And what does that mean? The first 30 I'd like to talk about is the sector capacity improvements, 30% plus sector capacity improvement by a couple of main software features, both of which are released now. So you can see this in the latest software, 22.1, that's out now. You get multiple groups per frame and another downlink slot. Basically, the engineers figured out a way to eke out another downlink slot in every frame. So that those two features combined using CN Medusa, our multi-user MIMO solution, enables you to achieve 30% better sector capacity in the busy hour. And most customers that have used this have seen it be effective and have really taken advantage of this. So that's the first 30. The second 30 is subject to regulatory approval, but what we have is the ability to put larger antennas on our connectorized 450B subscriber modules in order to enhance that range. And we talk about 30% with a 3-foot dish. It's actually 50% or so, but we know not a lot of service providers are going to want to put a 3-foot dish on somebody's home. It's kind of obscene, but the ability to do so is there, and you can take advantage of that in the 5.8 band where that loophole exists to have that point-to-point kind of power EIRP limits. So those things are still in process in terms of officially approving them, but you can obtain these antennas and hook them up to a connectorized radio, and it'll be completely above board once we get the regulatory approval to do so. So testing is in progress with those. Then the third 30, subscriber throughput, probably the most important of the 3 branches that we're talking about today, and that's the increase in subscriber throughput or endpoint throughput. And what we found is that as we've advanced the software, we're just not able to kind of keep the pipe full or keep data flowing through that queue quickly enough with the architecture the way it was originally designed back in, as Zach mentioned, 2001, 2005-ish timeframe. That the same canopy architecture that we've used, the canopy Mac, has been around a long time. It requires some updating to take better advantage of these wider channels, longer frame times, and that sort of thing that we can really push more data through. So that's happening. It's happening concurrently with the product release that's upcoming, but we're working on getting that out the door in Q1. So that's the third 30, and we think that these 3 things combined really allows you to get better performance out of the network that you probably already have if you're already a 450 customer. That's just a summary slide of all those things. But so enhance that system you already have. And really the goal here was to be able to effectively provide 100 megabit packages to those customers that are in the right scenario. And that's any customer that we think can do kind of the 6x modulation mode with 450, we think you can provide that 100 meg service for those guys. And then we can get additional hard to reach customers with that added range. So what are we doing after this? Well, after this, we talk about the opening up of new spectrum. So the spectrum today, right, is 5 gigahertz, and that's made up of about 4 different bands. And then they added this little 45 megahertz of extra spectrum there as a temporary measure during COVID. And I know a lot of folks on the phone are already taking advantage of that with the special temporary authority to do so. And that'll continue for a while, it looks like. I was hoping kind of by now they would have made that permanent, but they haven't yet. So continue to take advantage of that STA ability to use that 45 megahertz at the top. But very soon, the FCC is going to open up the 6 gigahertz band, which is a lot of spectrum, about 850 megahertz of extra spectrum. And you can see that in Uni 5 and Uni 7 there. Those two chunks of spectrum will be allowed to be used outdoor at standard power, which means 4 watts EIRP, similar power levels to what you do in the unlicensed 5 gigahertz band. That does require the use of what they call an AFC, an automated frequency coordinator. And that is kind of like CBRS Lite. So if folks are familiar with the spectrum sharing capabilities of CBRS, it's a little bit like that, in that the AFC will coordinate and query a database, the ULS, and the FCC. And this is all analogous in Canada as well. So if there's any Canadian folks on the line, Canada has a very similar approach to 6 gigahertz and is following fairly closely. In fact, Canada just approved the first AFC provider last week, Qualcomm, and they seem like they have spurred along the FCC to make some movement forward in this game as well. In any case, 850 megahertz become available. ePMP, it has 2 product lines, the 4500, which Bruce will talk about in a bit, and the 4600. So there's 2 separate product lines that will cover 5 gigahertz and 6 gigahertz with the next generation of hardware. And the 450 product line has the 450V, and this will cover the entire band from 515 all the way up to 7125. So all of that in one SKU. So that's what's upcoming in terms of new spectrum.
Hey, Matt, I've got a quick question for
Yeah,
you.
go for it, Zach.
If you could go back one slide, the AFC, is that going to be similar to a SAS where that's going to be a monthly fee per transmitting radio? How will that work, if you know?
Our approach to this, Cambium's approach to this is to not charge for that service. There is a cost to using that service, but Cambium is going to bear the cost. It's less onerous than CBRS. So CBRS will continue the way it is with a monthly fee to operate, because CBRS requires that there's check-ins, there's data transfer, there's SAS to SAS interaction. There's a lot of costs associated with that, whereas AFC is much less. It's a once per day check against the database and an approval or a message back to the radio once per day. It's much simpler. There's no incumbents. There's no priority license holders. It's a much simpler system. So we are going to bear the cost of that.
Okay. So AFC, don't you sass me. I get it.
Right.
Cool, man. Thank you.
You're welcome. To dive into the 450V a little bit, the product itself is going to be released in 2 pieces of hardware at the beginning. It'll be a 4x4 access point and a 4x4 high performance subscriber module. Thereafter, about 6 months later or so, we're going to have the 2x2 subscriber module as well. So let me dive into that a little bit. 4x4, what does that mean? That means we have 2 dual polar chains, and those can be used in different parts of the spectrum and be aggregated. The carriers can be aggregated. So it's actually like a 2 carrier system. And you can do one of those bands in 5 gigahertz, one in 6. You can do both in 6, both in 5. It's a very flexible system. The hardware will provide capabilities up to 2 by 100 megahertz channels. When it's launched, it'll be only 40 megahertz channels, 2 by 40 megahertz channels. But then as it the software gets developed, we will enhance that to 2x80 and then 2x100 megahertz channels. And we like to call that dual sector mode, because what you can do with this product is replace your access point, continue to operate your 5 gigahertz radios the way that they were in a 30 or 40 megahertz channel, and then add a 6 gigahertz channel to that sector, and add subscribers in 6 gigahertz, or use the 4x4 subscriber modules to aggregate those two carriers together and enhance the data rate that you can achieve. So it's a really flexible platform, backward compatible, forward compatible, and we're really excited to get this out the door. Question is, yeah, I see a question in the chat about 4.9. There is no plans for 450V to support 4.9. I know there are some public safety access. Some folks have access to that spectrum, not a lot of you, or else we'd see more sales in that area. But if you need 4.9, we do still have the 450i and 450m available to support 4.9 for sure. So just to kind of walk through a couple of those features in a little bit more detail. 5 to 7 gigahertz in one SKU, backward compatibility. We will support wider channels and dual sector mode. We can aggregate those carriers using the 4x4 devices. And then in the future, we will implement things like transmit and receive diversity. We can actually operate on different frequencies and transmit and receive, and we can have different channel bandwidths in the downlink and uplink. So those are things that are coming in the software in the future. Again, symbol architecture, same architecture as the 450 that you know today. And then after that, we will launch the 450 Medusa second gen product. This provides a massive leap forward in technology. It's 24 by 24, whereas today's radio is 14 by 14. So that adds more chains. This will also implement interference mitigation techniques. You have a lot of chains to do that with. Improved non-line of sight. And then again, all simple architecture, easy to deploy, very flexible platform. So this is about a year away from launch of the 450V, but this is coming, and this is what the next generation of Medusa is going to look like.
Man, we got a lot of activity.
I see some questions.
Yeah, so why don't I lob a few of these over to you?
Sure, go for it.
So how many watts? 450V AP. How many watts does that require?
We're not exactly sure the final number yet, but typical is going to be around 40 to 45 watts of power.
All right.
So it's 8023 BT type 4 mode 7, something like that. I don't might have got those wrong, but 8023 BT power PoE.
Carried the 2. Got it. General availability on the 450V, Matt.
We will launch this product in December, and that ties in pretty well with when 6 gigahertz. We anticipate 6 gigahertz will get released. So that's the date as of right now. It'll be December.
Okay, very good.
Mm-hmm.
And the AP is as far as how many subs they will support. We have a specific question. Will it support 120? Help us understand that.
The anticipation is that it supports the same number that the current product line supports, which is 238. That's what we're going to support out of the gate. We hope to increase that number down the road, but that's a reasonable number. So yeah, 238.
All right. We got another question here. I said update RSS 247 in August. It's going to allow the use of the 58.
Yeah, we've reviewed that, and that's not real usable. It's a 30 dBm limit on that band. So it kind of limits you how far you can get with that spectrum, which is different than 5.8, right? So 5.8 is 36 dBm, 5.850 to 5.895 is 30. And we've evaluated that. It's going to cost a significant amount of money if we had to get it approved. If we want to do that, we can certainly look into that. And I guess I recommend that customers that want that spectrum talk to us. Email me directly if you want, but it's not a great, doesn't look like a great opportunity to use it because of the limitation on power. But understand it's new spectrum, so maybe it is valuable. So I'd like to hear about it. So we haven't planned to open that up as yet, but that is something we're considering.
Okay, cool. As far as the AFC is concerned, Matt, is that going to be interfaced via CN Maestro, your network management solution?
Yeah.
Or is that going to go directly from the AFC to the access point?
So Bruce might cover this a little bit as well. On the ePMP side, it's direct from the radios for sure. On the 450 side, we're going to go through Maestro, meaning like the proxy, just like we do with CBRS, but the radios can communicate directly. And so we'll have to see exactly the scenario that we have on the 450 side. But yes, it will likely utilize the proxy very similarly to what CBRS does today.
All right, awesome. Cool. We got a few more questions, but I'm going to let you keep grooving here, Matt.
Okay.
Don, I see your question. I see everybody's questions here. We're going to try and get to them, but we'll hold for the moment and let Matt continue on his path here.
All right. So I just wanted to cover very quickly a couple of scenarios where it makes sense, where you want to think about adding 450V to your network, where it makes kind of a no-brainer kind of sense. So if you have a 450i AP today, and you're operating with that today, the easy way to upgrade the network is to replace that AP with 450V. That immediately gives you the ability to provision a 40 megahertz carrier in 6 gigahertz, which effectively, if you are using a 40 megahertz carrier in 5 gigahertz, you can effectively double the sector capacity by adding those. You can move some of the high usage customers to 6 gigahertz and free up some more 5 gigahertz bandwidth and that sort of thing. So that's kind of a no-brainer, easy method to move that over. Something you may not be thinking about that might be of interest is if you have a Medusa sector and the multiplexing gain is less than 2x during peak, it may be effective to actually replace that with a 450V and use your 450M somewhere else in your network, because you'll actually see improvement in total capacity by doing so. If that multiplexing gain is not, maximized, maybe you have a lot of guys in the same area, or maybe you have guys that are using the data in the same area. So that might be an option as well. We can go through these scenarios in more detail. I just don't want to take a lot of time here. But let me know if we want to go through a specific scenario, because we can definitely do that. In a kind of with numbers view, using a 450 Medusa at 30 megahertz, and then swapping to that 450V at the 30 megahertz and 5 gigahertz, and then adding 80 of 6 gigahertz, we actually see an improvement of almost double of what you can get there. And that's based on a theoretical. And then we took an actual sector that we know about at one of our customers, and we can show again almost the doubling of the throughput by swapping a 450V for a Medusa. So think about that as an option as well. So again, easy to do to increase your numbers. You get kind of the 2x throughput by aggregating those two carriers, and we call it nearly 2x because 6 gigahertz does have a little bit of EIRP limitation based on the power spectral density. So it's not quite double. It's like 195% instead of 200%. And then you can do 6 gigahertz only and utilize all that spectrum in 6 if you overlay with a 5. So that's another option to add V to your network as well. So that's all I had. I'm going to shift gears and swap it over to Bruce here, and he's going to talk about ePMP 4000.
Hey, before we jump into that, Matt, I do see some more questions that are relevant to the 450V and now the MV as well.
Sure.
I'm going to try and compress some of Don's questions all into one here. Don, these are great questions, and thanks for the interaction. So will the 450V and MV be supported by your current CN Matrix tower switches? Will the 6 gigahertz AFC be available in December with the product release? And will 450 MV be available in December as well?
So
the trifecta.
Let me go backwards. The MV is about a year after we launch the V. So it's at the end of 2024, best case.
Okay.
That's what it looks like as of right now. It's
Okay.
under development. The AFC, we don't have any control or exactly know when it's coming. Last week, the FCC released the public notice and made clear the dates for testing and public trial of the AFCs, and that is a minimum of 67 days of public trial and a testing period. They can go on concurrently, but then there's also a review of the FCC of that public trial data, which we anticipate to be about 4 weeks. So as of right now, the dates are more or less lining up with a December launch, a December commercial AFC deployment timeframe. That's what it looks like. That is a guess. That is not set in stone. But as AFCs begin this phase, which we expect them to begin in the next few weeks, there's kind of this 67 days plus 4 weeks kind of window. So maybe a 12-week window. So December is the date that's kind of what's lining up to. So that's the AFC question.
All right.
And then the first question was,
Power
will they be
switches.
supported by our tower switches?
Yes, sir.
Yes, they will. The MV, however, will be DC powered very similarly to the 3 gigahertz Medusa, meaning it requires about 180 watts or so. So it will need to be DC powered, but certainly can interface with the switch.
All right. Awesome. Matt,
All right.
thank you very much. Bruce, let's turn it over to you.
All right, thanks, Zach. Thanks, Matt. Yeah, and great to see everybody. And keep those questions coming. It's great to see the interest in the new platforms. So I'm going to talk about ePMP, and as Matt mentioned, this is the 4000 series of ePMP. For those of you that aren't familiar with ePMP, it is this is about the I guess the 11th year that we've had ePMP, and it is really focused on point to multipoint and point to point. We have a lot of people that deploy these as point to point links, and really it's about scalability and economically attractive package. So you can go to the next slide, Matt. What we're introducing with the new platform here is 2 different variants. So as Matt showed on the spectrum chart, we have a 4500 series, which operates in 5 gigahertz. That'll do up to about 3 gigabits per sector. And it is an 8x8 MU-MIMO. So it's a step up from the 3000 series, both in capacity within the multi-user MIMO capabilities, and the higher modulations. So really a significant step up in performance. And I'll show you some examples of how that's operating in the field, so you can see that we're really excited about the results people are reporting out of the beta program. 6 gigahertz is a separate platform, so that's a 4600. That introduces a couple of new things as well. So with the connectorized SM, you can go up to 4K QAM and up to 160 meg channels. So given that we have 850 megahertz of new clean spectrum, we really believe in what we're seeing already with some of the experimental license holders is that the ability to achieve these higher modulations is real, and even go with the higher channel bandwidths, whether you choose to go there or not. The performance is there, and it gives you these options to really start pumping up the service packages that you can offer. So certainly meeting the bare minimum of 100 by 25, but offering 200 meg services, 500 meg services, and even a gig if you're using this in the point-to-point mode, or using that connectorized SM in the multi-point mode. So go ahead, Matt. So for those of you that are familiar with ePMP, kind of what's new, and I kind of covered that. Performance is a significant step up. It will use the AFC in the 4600, so the 6 gigahertz platform. I'll comment on the one question that came up before with AFC and the way ePMP will interface to it. Every access point and every subscriber module will connect directly to the AFC. So it will go out and query that database. It happens once on power up, and then it happens every 24 hours thereafter. So it is a lightweight protocol. We are also going to introduce a proxy, and I expect that proxy to be available also in that December timeframe, so that if you don't want every device going out directly to the AFC, you can set up a simple proxy server in your network that will do that AFC transaction. So some of the new technologies that come along with the 4000 series, whether it's 5 gig or 6 gig, you'll see, I mentioned the higher modulations. Not only do we get the benefit of downlink multi-user MIMO, but now we also have uplink multi-user MIMO. So as more of your end users are working from home and you're doing more live streaming type of applications, this brings even more uplink capacity in the sector. So it really is a nice benefit for as sort of the use cases of home internet access has evolved over time. And you also see a reference there to OFDMA. This is really going to help with small packet efficiency and with some of the if you have some reflective environments and non-line of sight environments, you're going to see some benefit with this capability as well. And we're also seeing that, and I'll show you in an example. What's the same? Pretty straightforward. It's the same air interface. So we are doing synchronization. We do the air fairness to make sure that you don't have one poor performing SM steal all the air time. Will perform well in both PTP and PMP mode. So those of you that are deploying in PTP primarily. And then all the tools, and I'll talk a little bit at the end about the tools that Cambium offers, whether it's Maestro, or Link Planner, C and Heat. And then everything else looks the same. If you're used to configuring an ePMP 3000, the only thing you're going to see is some new options. When you open up the radio, you'll see some new options for higher channel bandwidths, and you'll see some reports that show the higher modulations. And of course, the 3-year warranty applies across all of these PMP platforms equally. So let's show some results. This is an example of a 6 gigahertz trial down in Texas. And what I highlight here is, and again, I'll also mention that this is using experimental licenses. So they're not, they're operating under an FCC experimental license. But what you'll see there is a couple different sites. The first one there, that site 10, is about a half a mile, and they're getting 1.5 gig down and 850 meg up. So this gives you a sense of the kind of service offering you could provide. Not sure you want to go all the way and offer 1.5 gig packages, but certainly if you wanted to offer 500 meg, 750 meg, even a gig, it starts to be in the realm of possibility with this new technology. So you see a couple of additional examples there. You can go to the next one, Matt. If you go a little bit further in range, this is the same access point, but if you go out a little bit further, you see site 5 and site 2. I'll pick site 2 there. It's a little over 2 miles. They're still achieving 930 meg down and 435 meg up. So really, the performance does extend out to that larger cell radius, and you can get some nice coverage area as well with this. So go ahead. And then, so that was 6 gigahertz, the 4600. We also have the 4500, and this is available. It's fully FCC approved, and you can deploy this today. I will highlight that the 4500 is today operating in what we call WLR mode, which is wireless long range mode. What we are introducing, it's actually in alpha testing now, is to support TDD synchronization and backwards compatibility with any of the existing Force 300 subscriber modules. So that's in alpha today. We have a large setup in our chamber here in Rolling Meadows outside of Chicago, that we have 100 subscriber modules connected to a 4500, and we're doing all the various testing for synchronization. We're knocking out the last few little findings on latency and some of the other issues, but we're knocking those out. And I expect to move this to a more open beta here within the next 30 days. So think kind of by the end of September, will be an open beta on the TDD synchronization, which will then lead to backwards compatibility. And certainly I expect to have that fully released here in fourth quarter. So this is an example of a near line of sight or even non-line of sight. And again, we're seeing really good performance. This is a customer who had some locations you can see with pretty heavy foliage that he just could not get not only heavy foliage, but also heavy interference floor. And he was able to achieve nice connections with the 4500, where he could not achieve that with any of the other products out there. So go ahead. So I won't go through this chart in detail, but it will give you a sense of the portfolio. So on the 5 gigahertz portfolio, we've had the Force 400C and 425 available for probably almost 2 years now as a point-to-point solution. And the feedback continues to be really strong on this, that it works really well as a point-to-point solution. What we're adding is on the right-hand side there, you'll see 2 access points, the ePMP 4500, which is that 8x8 MU-MIMO with the integrated antenna. And then you'll see on the right-hand column a 4500L, which is its little brother. It's similar. It's a 2x2 MIMO product. So it's kind of similar to that 3000L, but in this new latest platform. And then on the subscriber module side, there's the Force 4525, which is the integrated dish. So that's pretty straightforward portfolio. You can pick your access point. You want the full-blown 8x8, the little brother 2x2, and then you've got the integrated dish. And then on the 6 gigahertz portfolio, it's similar. You'll see here we have on the right-hand side, I'll start there. We have the 4600 access point. So this is the 4x4 MU-MIMO access point. That comes, you order the antenna separately on that. So that is kind of set up very similarly to the ePMP 3000. And then you have the 4600L, again, the little brother, that's a 2x2, perfect for really small cells, narrow sectors that you want to set up with a horn antenna. So really we see this as being able to scale up to large sectors, but then with the platform, you can scale down to really small sectors if you want to just serve a handful of customers in a small subdivision. You have that option as well, and it will scale up and down economically as you target different markets.
Hey, Bruce, we've got a couple of relevant questions here for you.
Sure.
So we've got some folks that do have the 4600 they're testing right now.
Okay.
They're seeing a great signal at about a max of 4 miles. Is that to be expected?
So in the 6 gigahertz, Matt alluded to this before, there is a little bit difference in the EARP within 6 gigahertz. It's 36 dBm EARP in both directions. You don't get that benefit of running higher EARP in the uplink direction, which you are able to do in the 5.8. So you will see that, but we do expect sort of that 3 to 5 miles is kind of the sweet spot for this when you look at the 4600.
Got it. Very good. And then we've talked a lot about 5 gigahertz, 6 gigahertz. Anything new in the 2.4 gigahertz spectrum?
So yeah, interesting. We are actually evaluating doing a 2.4 gigahertz. I know that many of the WISC community has brought this up each time we go to one of the shows. I have at least a handful of people asking me about it. Whatever happened to 2.4? 2.4 is not a lot of spectrum, but we are kind of developing a concept around using similar platform technology here with the ePMP 4000 and doing that in a 2.4. So more to come on that, but I will say that it's a little bit, where in the past I would have said, no, we're not doing anything on it. I'll say we're at least investigating, and the engineering team is doing some conceptual development around that.
Got it. Very good.
Okay. Anything else? Or?
I have one other question, and then there's several folks that had some Matt relevant questions on 450V or VM. I'm going to save those to the end, folks. So please be patient with us here. The ePMP 4500, Bruce, I said licensed or no?
So it's great question. I believe it is now. So I will confirm that here as we go. I'll try to do it as we go, but I know it's in process. But let me just double check that it is FCC approved, and we did just achieve the EU or European Union approval. I think we're just waiting for the ISED-C to populate on their public website, but I believe all the testing and everything is done. So whether it's actually posted on their register, I'll double check that here as we go.
All right. Very good.
If it's not, it's imminent.
Cool.
Matt, can you go back to the previous slide real quick? I just want to highlight one other point, especially for those of you that are doing 4600 in experimental licenses with the 4625. One of the things that the FCC has clarified is that every SM and AP must have a permanent lat long GPS receiver to affirm the location of that radio. So whereas we had been looking for options to say it's a professional installer and therefore they can just type in what the lat long is. No, the FCC has now declared that there must be a GPS receiver at each SM as well as at the access point. So on the 4625, that means there's an external GPS receiver that's needed. Once the AFC goes live, you'll need to attach one of these GPS receivers. And it goes a little bit further than that as well, that it has to be a GPS receiver that was certified with the radio at the FCC. So our radio has to check that it is indeed the GPS receiver that we certified that's connected. And then once it's confirmed, then we can activate that device on the AFC. So I really want to make that clear, because many of the people that deployed these under the experimental license did not have that GPS receiver attached. Those are readily available. I know Wave has some of those as well. And then the 4600C, which is the connectorized SM, has that GPS receiver built in, as well as the access points have the GPS receiver built in. So it's really just the 4625 that you'll have that external module. I do see a question there from Ryan about if you don't have a GPS, will it just run at lower power? So no, we're only supporting what the fixed standard power model with ePMP. So we're not going to fall back to that super low power. Just don't see the never say never, but that's not in the current plans for the initial release. Okay, you can go forward then. So a couple things. I did want to point out that the ePMP 3000 platform is not dead. Lots of people are still deploying that. Lots of people are still buying that. And we are still developing software and features on it. So if you have an ePMP 3000 based network, don't be concerned that you will lose support anytime soon. We expect that the 4500 series will run in parallel with the 3000 series for years to come. As an example of that, the 4.7 firmware was released earlier this year with a number of nice features on that, really specifically, and I'll go to another slide on this, which is Smart QoS. So you can go to the next slide, Matt. Smart QoS is an application level DPI. This is built into the radio, and what it lets you do is group up different applications and assign them to the ePMP QoS queue. So I can take all my voice applications and put them in the voice queue. I can take live streaming, put those in the high priority queue, and then I can push file transfers and those types of things, and email and those kind of applications to the low priority queue. So it kind of lets you take that next step from just doing the code points and actually looking at what kind of applications. It also gives you a nice visualization of what is the different traffic types. So this is available on the access point today. If you load 4.7, you can turn this on and you'll get that nice view of what's happening in the access point. So go ahead, Matt. And then I will highlight, I mentioned a little bit of this before, so I won't be redundant, but the 4000 series will operate on the 5.x firmware line versus I mentioned the 4.7 on the 3000 line. The key thing coming on the 5 gig or the 5.x firmware is, as we've talked many times on this call, the AFC support. We'll see that here in fourth quarter. And then as well, the TDD synchronization and backwards compatibility. So I can take and forwards compatibility. So I can take a 4500 access point and it will talk to my Force 300 subscriber modules. Similarly, I can start populating Force 4525 subscriber modules and have them talk even to an ePMP 3000. So I kind of have that convenient way of rolling forward to the next generation platform. Go ahead, Matt. So that's kind of the wrap on ePMP. I don't know if there was any other questions that came in, Zach, that you want to cover now, or I can move on to the final couple slides.
Bruce, we got a smattering here, man. I can't stay hydrated enough. These guys are keeping me on my toes.
That's great.
ePMP 1000. Are you guys going to stop making the ePMP 1000? That was one of the questions.
For the most part, that is already done. So we have end of life most everything in the 1000 series, including the 2.4. So I know somebody asked about 2.4.
What's your suggestion for folks that have got a lot of foliage and trees then?
So what I would suggest is, you know, again, watch this space for a potential announcement on a 2.4 ePMP product. That's probably the best thing at this point.
Very good. Cool. Let's have another one here. On either the 450M or ePMP 6 gig, is there an option to disable the AP from connecting to the ASR? I haven't heard the acronym ASR before. I think this gentleman may mean the AFC, or I just am not up on my acronyms. Do you know what ASR is, Bruce or Matt?
No,
It's
I
not
do
I
jumping
meant to
to
type
mind.
AFC, so if you could.
Possibly, yeah.
Okay.
And
So,
there's
and
no.
the answer
The
is no.
answer's no.
If it's AFC, the answer is no.
Right.
The FCC is making it. That is the primary. Oh, okay.
ASR is a Cisco router, gentlemen. Thanks, Rob.
But that's a different person asked. The different person responded to the one who asked the question.
I don't know what that is either. In terms of even if it's a Cisco router, I don't know what
he did mean.
Okay.
He did mean
Okay,
AFC.
good.
Yeah. So yeah.
There we go.
Okay. So we got it. So yeah. So it's definitely required. There's no way to turn it off. And that is you know, by design of the FCC certification. So they're quite strict on that. And we also see that even with this now confirmation that we need that GPS receiver.
Cool. Matt, over to you. 450V or VM or MV, I'm sorry. Are there any licenses required for some of the features you were talking about? Channel aggregation, channel size, MU, MIMO?
So for 450V, we don't have any licenses at the moment at all. So all the features I discussed, in theory, will be included with the product. There may, with the 2x2 subscriber, I believe there will be a throughput limit on one model. We're thinking of having a lower cost through subscriber module that does 200 megs, and then an uncapped version, which in theory, with a single 100 megahertz channel, you can get up to about 700, 750 megabits of data through that. For the MV, which is again over a year away, there may be some licensed features, but we'll announce those well before launch.
Okay,
but
beautiful.
right now, no. Yep.
Okay. One other question, and then we got to move on, folks. So Unified Event Manager, UEM, it's an application that provides fault management services for Astro radio systems. Can the 450i be managed from that event manager application? 450i question.
There's a couple of ways to go about that. One is using the API through CN Maestro. Another would be SNMP. So if it can support either of those things, then yes. If it's a specific to that application, I'm not familiar with that application. So if it's specific to that and a non-standard thing, then we'd have to investigate.
Very cool. All right, Bruce, back to you. I'm going to go back to hydrating and making sure I'm telling these questions. Go.
Okay. Good stuff. So let's talk about some of the tools that go around that. So it's not just about bits per second and megahertz per channel. We also have a series of software tools that make these easy to expand and scale up. So the one that we're really excited about is QoE, or quality of experience. And the reviews just keep coming in, is very positive on this. I will say that QoE applies to all broadband technologies. It's really access layer agnostic. So whether you're using 450, ePMP, 60 gigahertz CN wave, Cambium fiber, QoE is applicable across all of those. And in fact, it also even works with if you happen to have made a mistake in the past and deployed a competitor's product, it will work with those as well. So we even see a number of customers deploying QoE on some legacy networks. So go to the next slide. I think the next slide is really what's kind of interesting. These are some examples of what customers have achieved, and it's really the goal of QoE. QoE is a software solution. It can sit in a virtual machine in your NOC or wherever you connect your peering points to the internet, and it is a customized TCP/IP stack that accelerates traffic. It applies you can apply rate plans, so you can integrate with a billing system, and you can apply different speed and rate plans. You can do rate plans based on application type. You can get very specific about, I only want to apply this certain times of the day. I only want to apply this when the network is congested. So I can really start to tailor that. On the other hand, you can just turn this thing on and it'll just work. So there's not a lot of configuration required. And many of our beta customers do exactly that. They turn it on and just see how it impacts these net results, which are really about reducing customer complaints. So how many calls are coming in because my Netflix is jittery or my Zoom call breaks up. How many customers churn, because that's the reason somebody will churn, is because their boss is not happy that they can't get a good connection to their Zoom call. And then the other thing that we've seen is that it allows you to defer some capital investment in your backhaul, because you're going to get more efficient use out of that backhaul. So you can see some examples there where they've, and I won't read through them. I know you have access to the recording and the slides here later, but really seeing some benefits of how much more efficient they can run that infrastructure and defer some tower upgrades that they might have had in the queue simply by deploying this software solution. So, go ahead to the next one. CN Maestro, I think as we went through this, there were some various things about network management. So CN Maestro is our network management solution that is a single pane of glass. It cuts across, again, that same sort of laundry list of products that Cambium offers, whether it's Cambium Fiber, 60 gigahertz CN Wave, our enterprise Wi-Fi solutions, all the PMP products, all from a single pane of glass. So this solution just keeps growing and becoming more capable with every release. So you can go to the next one. And then on the network planning side, there's a couple of things happening here that are also quite exciting. Link Planner, if you've used any Cambium product in the past, you probably have come across Link Planner, or at least seen reference to it or seen the output of it. Link Planner is a great tool to do a whole variety of what-if scenarios. I basically populate what I want to connect, and then I can start populating, well, what are my frequency options? What are my topology options? What are my antenna options? And you can do all kinds of what-if scenarios to say, how much capacity do I want? How much coverage do I want? How much reliability do I want? How mission critical is this connection? And then it spits all that out into a nice installation plan, proposal plan, and really a all-around great solution. What's news about this is that it's moving to the cloud, or is effectively moved to the cloud. So where in the past you would have put this on an application on your Windows laptop or Macintosh laptop, you can now run this in the cloud. And that's going to lead to some new benefits, like you'll see more integration between Link Planner and CN Maestro. So within CN Maestro, you'll be able to see how is it performing relative to what I planned, and it'll highlight that. So having that data combined is really going to help introduce some new capabilities. So if you haven't logged into Link Planner lately, you can go on there and check out the cloud version. Most all features, there's a few sort of PTP8XX or licensed microwave has not moved entirely to the cloud. Some of those sort of esoteric configurations that are still in process, but for the most part, the PMP and other products and ePMP are moved over to the cloud version. And then CN Heat, I'll put a plug in for that as well. This is our planning tool that uses LiDAR data to give very precise near line of sight, non-line of sight, line of sight indications for different connections. And what that allows you to do is be very accurate in your pre-qualification for a customer, and also very precise in what that installer, where they should locate that installation. So should they put it on the northwest corner of the house or the southeast corner of the house? So it really can cut down on missed pre-qualifications or false pre-qualifications, and it can cut down on installation time or revisits on installation time. So a big cost saver for service providers. If you have LiDAR data in your area, it's not available 100%, but it's getting there in the US and Canada. And then what you'll see is this is a software solution available as a subscription that you can take advantage of.
Hey, Bruce, quick question. Can line of sight, can LOS coverage from other CN Heat be exported to other GIS tools or Google Earth, sir?
Yeah, that's a good question. There are some export capabilities for like reporting. I probably have to come back to you on that one. I don't know, unless Matt, do you happen to know on the export?
I believe it can. In what form, I think it depends on what you're trying to import it to. I know
Okay.
you can we utilize Google Earth for the see and heat tool itself. So that's certainly the case. I don't know what you want to export. The map is generated in see and heat. So we can talk further about that if you need to.
Yeah.
Got it. QoE, quality of experience. Are you guys going to bake that into the Maestro cloud?
So so QoE is it's a great question, first of all, because it is a question that comes up quite often. QoE is a software solution. It needs to sit kind of between your access network and where you connect to the internet. So many people put this in their NOC or where they have the peering points to the internet. Now, how it bakes into CN Maestro, which is underway, not there today, but all of the data that comes off of QoE, and QoE generates a lot of data, all about when is the network congested, what is congesting the network, who are my top talkers. You can find out all of this information. You can see all that in the QoE interface. But what will be really nice is when we can pull that into CN Maestro and share that data with some of the radio performance data as well. And that's going to also layer another set of analytics that we are already testing in the lab, which is where QoE can understand exactly what's happening at the access point. So if you, for example, if you're talking to a 450M, knowing exactly what the load is, what the utilization on that access point is, that gives you another great indication of when congestion might be starting to happen and when I can take action to make sure the latency doesn't creep up as you deliver those services.
Awesome. All right, Bruce, from a slideware perspective, we got 5-minute warning here, folks, and the questions keep a-coming.
Well, I think the good news is that's the last slide. So
wicked.
We're on track. We have time for a few more questions. It's been great. I love all of the interaction.
Yeah, good interaction.
Yeah, I got a fresh one coming in hot. From a multi-WISP operator context, please share a little about how coexistence between wide channel width uses on 4600 APs and narrow channel usage works, and what role, if any, can an AFC have with managing different channel width between different operators?
I can take this one, Bruce. The AFC is not a manager at all. The only purpose of the AFC is to protect incumbent users, and those incumbent users are license holders in 6 gigahertz, and they have to be registered in the ULS database. So if any other user of that spectrum it's considered unlicensed, just like 5 gigahertz. So there's no management, there's no coexistence algorithms, there's none of that existing in 6 gigahertz at all. So the AFC does not do anything with managing. It is simply querying the database to see if there's a 6 gigahertz license holder in the area and protecting against interference of that license holder. That is all.
Got it.
I hope that answers the question.
So what you'll see on the ePMP, the GUI is when it connects to the AFC and gets that response back that Matt just described, you'll see basically a spectrum chart, and it'll say, here's the channels that are available and the power level that I can operate in any of those channels. So it'll be a very graphical view, but you're open to use any of the available channels. You don't have to, it's not going to dictate which channel. You just see a graph of here's all my options on what I can do with assigning a channel.
All right, cool. Matt, the 450V and MV, do they do channel bonding, sir?
The 450M does not do any form of channel bonding today. It's a single carrier. It's 14 by 14, so it does multi-user MIMO, but it does not bond disparate channels together. The 450MV will have some capability to do that. What that exactly looks like yet is TBD, but that is absolutely in the plans for the MV.
Awesome. Thanks for the correction on the M's and V's. I got mixed up. What are the planned or planned differences between the 450 V and the 450 MV is the question.
Well, you can kind of think about it as the 450V is the replacement for 450I and 450B. It's the next generation hardware. The MV is the next generation hardware for the 450M. And so that's the multi-user MIMO capable, the big dog, the big access point that can do it all. High spectral efficiency, super high capacity. We're talking about, 4 to 5 gigabits of data in a single sector.
All right, back to AFC, gentlemen. Do we know what the protection will look like? Will it exclude certain radius from the broadcaster, or will it be based on the azimuth of the incumbent antenna?
So it's based on a calculation of power from the source, from the license holding link. And those are licensed PTP links, right? 6 gigahertz has licensed links. It's not necessarily just a radius. It's based on the power, the antenna style, all of the things that are in the ULS database. And I'm speaking about this because I know more about the US, the FCC variant. I don't know a lot about Canada. I know that question's from Ryan, but I don't know a lot about how the Canadian database looks in terms of what data is in there. It does not today take into account the azimuth of the antenna that you're trying to use, meaning the new point to multipoints AFC 6 gigahertz stuff. It does not take into account the azimuth, which we've argued that it should, because we're directional, especially on the subscriber side. And so we can perhaps get better power or limit the amount of interference that you're causing if you know which direction it's pointing. But today it does not take that into account.
All right. So here's what we're going to do, gentlemen. I do believe we hit 99.9% of the questions here. And I would ask Nicole from MBSI Wave. Nicole, if you could help us out and download the chat. What I'll do is I'll work with you and discern with the fellows which questions we didn't get to. And Bruce and Matt, if you could please answer those questions. We'll be disseminating this PowerPoint, folks, to all of you that attended, and then we'll be posting this recording on YouTube. But we're right at an hour, guys. I can't say thank you enough for this great partnership. And for the folks that were on the call lobbing questions back and forth, this has been amazing and great participation. So we thank you. And hopefully this is a great utilization of your time. So thank you guys so much. Bruce, Matt, you're both gentlemen. Thanks for your time today.
Thanks, Zach. Thanks everyone.
Zach. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, team.